All right, I want to start off this video talking about some things that you might see that can get confusing for a drone pilot that make you think it's something that you need to be more concerned about than you are or that you need to be. One of them is just outside of Class Bravo at about 30 nautical miles out from the center. You are going to possibly run into these Mode C veils, and it's a magenta line. It can confuse a lot of people and make you think that you might be looking at a Class Charlie airspace, but all this is telling manned aircraft or piloted airplanes when they come into this area is that anywhere inside of this big circle, this 30 nautical mile circle, they need to have Mode C transponders in order to operate in that area. So nothing that you as a drone pilot need to be worried about, but I wanted you to make you aware that they were there so that they don't ever creep up on you and scare you. The next thing we want to look at that often throws drone pilots is the VOR radio. So this first thing you're going to see up here, you see an airport. It's a blue airport, so that tells us it's a towered airport. And you can see the radial going around the airport. And now somewhere in there, there'll be a dashed blue line. If you go back to the earlier video when we were talking about chart basics, you'll notice when we first came on and we were talking about the Tampa Bay area, St. Pete Clearwater International area has one of these older nav aids called a VOR. And it's at the airport, but you'll also see the dashed blue line inside or outside of this radial. So this is just to help piloted aircraft pilots to know basically where is north in relation to this particular nav aid and where the basic idea of each particular radial off that system, off that VOR is located. Now there'll be some boxes, and you'll notice here in the middle there's Oakdale, and it gives you a frequency, and Pontiac, and it gives you some information of frequency. This is not stuff that's overly important to a drone pilot. It's stuff for VOR, and it's stuff for piloted aircraft only. So again, don't sweat that when you see it. It's nothing special. All right, and again, talking about boxes, if you happen to see blue boxes or pink boxes, any kind of boxes on your charts, check that out. Make sure you understand what's going on there because it could be vitally important information. Talking more about boxes, flight service stations, other forms of information that you can get if you have a radio. You can tune into some of these frequencies and you might hear some chatter, but probably nothing that's going to be vitally important to your operation. All right, and then there's the airports themselves. So as you can see on here, there's a lot of information, and they're basically showing everything that you might see around a larger airport. So when you see these larger airports, usually around the Bravo and the Charlie airports, they'll give you a group of information. In fact, around the deltas and even many of the uncontrolled airports, you're going to find at least the name of the airport and the frequencies that are important to that airport. So let's take a look. In this top one, it says, the one that's on the left, you see, it says, first of all, that there's a star there, which means there's a rotating beacon in operation at that location from sunset to sunrise. So that's all that means. That little star tells you there's a beacon at this runway or this airport. It'll be a white light that spins around with a green light on the back. So there'll be green light flash, and then you'll see a white light flash, and that's how you know that, number one, it's not a military airport. It's a regular civilian airport, and that it is that airport with that beacon. So FSS is the top thing that you see in the information below the airport itself, below the graphic of the airport. FSS just means there's a flight service station on the field. Not important to us. The no S VFR says that there's no special VFR allowed there. Again, that's a piloted airport issue, not something we need to be concerned with. The next group of information you're going to see is the three-letter identifier and name for the airport, the IACO phonetic identifiers for the airport, just like with KSPG is Albert Whitted here in the Tampa Bay area. The K, again, meaning we're part of the 48 contiguous United States, and then the SPG being the three-letter identifier. This is where you would find that information. The name of the airport and that particular identifier would be right there. The next line shows CT, and then you see dash 118.3. That is your control tower, CT, control tower frequency. Now, if you notice, there's a star here too. And it's a star that does not have a dot in the middle of it. The one up above had a dot in the middle of it, talked about it being a rotating beacon. This one is a solid blue star. That means that the class Delta, or the class Bravo in this case, is only part-time. I don't see that very often. This actually could be a class Delta, because Bravos are usually in operation 24/7, but so this has got to be a Delta. It would close down part of the day. And that's what that star means. When you see the dark blue circle with the C in the middle of it, that is telling you that the preceding frequency that they just gave you, 118.3, when the airport goes down for its inoperable time, then that frequency becomes the CTAF channel, and CTAF stands for Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. This is how the planes talk to one another to help sequence their landings and their takeoffs to keep everybody from hitting one another. And that's important. If you're going to be flying around an airport, especially if it changes into a different class of airspace, or Gulf for that matter, then you want to listen to that, because now they don't have a tower. It's just the airplanes talking to one another, and they're helping each other. And so this is where you're going to get all of the valid information as to what's going on out there. The next line down says ASOS AWOS. This is another great channel to listen to when you get in the area, because that is the weather that is at the airport. It's usually pretty much the same stuff you would get out of a METAR. It's the recent weather up until that point. And if there's any significant change in that weather, this thing will automatically pump out a SPECI. So it'll be an updated report. The next group of information you're going to get is the elevation in feet. So this airport is 897 feet MSL. The L there means that it's lighting in operation from sunset to sunrise. If there was a star next to the L, it would say that there were lighting limitations, and you'd have to refer to what they're saying is the Airport Facilities Directory, but we know the old AFD is now called the U.S. Chart Supplement, or the Chart Supplement U.S. The next thing that you see here is the 110, and that is the length of the longest runway in hundreds of feet of usable length, and that it could be a little bit less. So you'd add 2 zeros to this, and that would be the length of this runway. This is a very long runway, very big runway, 11,000 feet long. The next piece gives you the UNICOM frequency, and that is the Aeronautical Advisory Station. You can get on there. It's a very laxed radio frequency where you can ask for a lot of information from the airport, but it's not something that we as drone pilots get involved in, because you're not allowed to be on the radio. It is against the law for you to be on the radio unless you have an FCC permit to be on this particular frequency. So drone pilots, just stay off the radio. It's trouble you don't want. Now, notice that they have some runways listed down here right below the UNICOM channel. It says RP 23 and 34. These two runways, runway 23 and 34, are right patterns Remember how I told you it's normally a left pattern. It's always a left pattern unless you see RP and it gives you the numbers of the specific runways that are right pattern runways. The next thing down is VFR advisory services, and they give you a frequency for that, something that we don't get involved with much as drone pilots. And then the last bits here are a WX cam, which means there's a weather camera there that you could possibly access. And then there's AOE, which is airport of entry, and that is strictly for what do you call those people? The people that check in, people coming from outside the country. And I can't think of the name of them right now. So again, nothing that's super important. They're just wanting to make sure that things that come into this country are legal and that everything is documented when it comes in. So that would mean this is an airport of entry, and that's all. It doesn't mean anything to us as drone pilots. So we're not going to worry too much about that. Again, a closer look at this so that you can see all the nuances here. You can always stop this and look at it later. And then if you're looking on a chart, there's an area around the edge of the chart called the legend. And in the legend, you can find out every control tower of every airport. They'll have them by name in alphabetical order. They'll have their times when they operate, in case they're shut down for any reason. If you notice, Bluegrass on here is a continuous operation. Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International, continuous. So is Cox Dayton International. But the rest of these all look like they've got starting and closing times. And notice down here there's a note that says these hours of operation are in local time. So you don't have to worry about converting Zulu there. If you notice, you can tune in to any of these tower frequencies. They give you the frequencies, the groups down here that show you a frequency and then say RWYS, and then they tell you the runways, 18 right and 36 left. They're saying that if you're going to be leaving those runways, these are the ground control frequencies and the tower frequencies that you want to use for these specific areas of the airport and what have you. Down here you can see ground control. 121.3 is for the east side, 121.7 is for west. They give you the ATIS, and ATIS will give you the basic weather that comes off the ASOS AWOS, and it will also tell you what's the active runway and if there's any NOTAMs of anything of note that's important. By the way, NOTAMs can be picked off of the FAA website, where you can even Google NOTAMs, and you can look up NOTAMs for your area and for the particular airports around where you're at to see if there's anything that they want to mention for where the area is that you may be flying to do a job. Also, the ATIS is updated hourly, and that's the one that gives you the little phonetic alphabet and tells you each hour what it is as it changes. That way you'll know if you've tuned into a new one or if you're listening to an old one. So good information there. Don't miss out on that. If you have a receiver, listen into that channel. It'll give you great information. Also, I was telling you about NOTAMs being available on on the FAA website. You can also look up TFRs, which are your temporary flight restrictions. We're going to talk about those as well a little bit more, but a temporary flight restriction is an area that you will find, especially if you go on a Lance operation app. They'll have those areas up and they will tell you cannot fly there. So if you happen to be inside of one, it'll stop you from flying there, because TFRs are put up for two reasons. One is whenever there's a president or a vice president moving on the ground somewhere for security reasons. They don't want aircraft flying around where the president might be. And then the other reason is if there's a sporting event with the National Baseball League or the NFL, so baseball, football, any place that's going to have 30,000 participants or more, they usually will have that shut down. what you're looking at here now is your class Bravos and Charlies and your Tursas. It's going to give you your frequencies for those facilities for your approach and departure control and for your Tursa control. And they'll give you the times when they're in operation, and they're also by alphabet. The next group, these are also in the legend. It gives you your prohibited, restricted, warning areas, alerts, and MOAs. And if there's a controlling facility, they're going to tell you who to contact to try to get a permission there. Anyhow, these are by their alphabet. So if it's restricted, it's R. Prohibited would be P. And then when you get down to MOAs, it goes back to naming. And so military operation areas are all by their names. And again, you see the different hours of operation. And at the bottom, you see it says sunset to sunrise. So SR, SS is your sunrise, sunset kind of thing, or sunset to sunrise. Anyhow, they'll give you all the great information there. It's all in the outer edges of your VFR charts and your sectional charts, and it's called the legend. So where can you find all this information? In the legend. All right. So next video, we're going to get into this next circle, and we're going to get some even more detailed information about little things that are found on the charts. That'll be part 3. Until you get to that video, happy studying.